Hey, this is Dale Tinsley. You're listening to the Connect podcast. Our purpose is to guide you to connect with yourself so that you can connect with others and live a life of meaning and value. Continuing the series, Connecting with Ourselves. Welcome back to Connect. Peace be with you. Today's episode is about emotional intelligence. Maybe it's a new word to you. Maybe you've heard it recently, thought about it. So today we're going to dive in to emotional intelligence and the layers that support it. It is foundational and it will change your life. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to not react on emotion. It's the ability to allow the emotion to pass and then use your mind and react with your mind. To think, to not be in the moment and out of your head. Someone makes you angry and you just react. So think of it as emotion versus thought. You ever hear that saying that life is 99% how you react? Very true. Realize that people's reactions to you is about them. It's not about you. You ever run into somebody on the street and you can feel their energy, they're heated, and they give that negative energy to you? You're like, what did I do to deserve that? Yeah, those are tough moments. That kind of ties into the next nugget, which is don't take things personally. Don't take things personally. Goes hand in hand with people's reactions. Is about them and not about you. So if you practice the art of not taking things personally and meditate with that idea, you'll save yourself a lot of grief. You'll definitely have a happier life, and you won't feed in to the reactions, to judgment, and the things that come along with that. So to practice emotional intelligence, to really apply it, we need to set ourselves up for success. So what does that look like, right? We need to realize our triggers. We need to be able to decompress. And so those are things that you're going to need to write down as you're meditating. Think about what sets you off. And if it's nobody in particular, then if you have that feeling that you're on edge and you're carrying around that energy that you wish somebody would, right? Living on edge like that is going to set you up for reacting on emotion and may put you in a situation where you can't take it back. And that's a no-win. So decompressing could be going to the gym, could be meditation, understanding your triggers, and trying to get to the root cause. When you feel yourself and you feel your anger building, or you feel like you're off, you know, maybe you feel like you're not satisfied in some areas of your life. And that underlying tension, that negative energy will continue to fester. And by it festering, it's not going to allow you to be in the moment and to practice emotional intelligence. So we're discussing the layers to set ourselves up for success, to be able to practice emotional intelligence. And you need to start listing down, what are your triggers? What are some things that I need to practice to be able to vent off this negative energy and find my balance, to keep yourself in balance, to keep yourself where your energy is building momentum in a positive way, in a healthy way. That could be curtailing some unhealthy habits that you've been wanting to work on, to tweak out. The things you're taking in could be food, could be music, could be negative friends, negative family members. And that's going to be personal for each of us. In the journal pertaining to this episode, that's where you can do the deep dive and really start to lay those things out. So now I want to give you some examples of applying emotional intelligence and what it looks like. So the first example I'm going to give you is a personal one. I had a girlfriend years ago, and we would get into arguments. It would get heated, and I couldn't really understand why it would keep building. At the time, it's before I knew about emotional intelligence, I was trying to get to the truth, and there was pushback in each direction. So I went to a friend and we had a discussion, and he gave me some advice. He said, don't feed into the energy in that moment. When you're in that moment, just breathe, relax, and don't feed it. I said, okay, right? He didn't say emotional intelligence, but I took it. It made sense. I had to chew on it and think about how, try and visualize, how is this going to happen? How is this going to work? Lo and behold, find myself in a similar situation a couple weeks later, same person. And we started arguing. And in that moment, I thought of my buddy's advice. And I just folded my arms and breathed and tried to relax and stayed calm. I didn't match her energy. And she got more angry and started, coming at me harder. And right there in that moment, I understood exactly what he was talking about. I was applying emotional intelligence without even knowing it. I hadn't wrapped my head around it or studied it at that time. She got angrier because I wasn't feeding in to the argument. And ultimately, she says, see, you don't care. You're not even getting angry. And I paused and I said, no, I'm staying calm because I love you. That was pretty wild. True story. The next story, and these are all facts. The next story I had read, this was years later. So by this time I had read Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Highly recommend it. Amazing book. It's a deep dive on emotional intelligence. I was working for an oil field company, and we were in the break room, and there was a coworker who he wasn't the friendliest. He had negative energy. You could just, this guy was on edge. I was translating in Spanish for some coworkers in the meeting. So he tells me, why don't you be quiet? They understand me. I tell him, no, they don't understand. That's why I'm translating. So he looks at me and he says, well, why don't you sit down? I said, I'm not a dog. I could start to feel within myself a shift, right? Like starting to get irritated. So he looks at me and he says, I don't want you here, and none of your coworkers want you here. I felt my toes bubbling. I felt rage, and it went from my toes all the way up to my head. Whew, that was a rush, right? I exhaled. I took a deep breath, exhaled. I let it go. I looked at him, and I said his name, and then I said, that's your opinion, and that's okay. Silence. Because I hadn't fed in to his anger, or he wasn't even actually angry, he was just a professional at throwing darts to get people to react. Because I didn't react to his venom and what he was trying to do to me to get a reaction out of me. Now, mind you, this guy was in a leadership role. He didn't have anything to say, well, you need to go home, or try and get me excused in that moment. Emotional intelligence is that powerful. And after the meeting, my buddy that was next to me, he tells me, he said, Dale, you turned red, man. He said, you turned red. I said, oh, I felt it. You know, he was making an attempt to stab me in front of everybody to get my ego to come out and do something I would have later regretted. Thank God at the time I had read Emotional Intelligence, because I don't think I would have been equipped to handle that situation. But God is good, and synchronicity and timing worked out. The last example I want to give you about applying emotional intelligence is fresh, actually. I was at the gym last night, and a guy that works there, we have some conversations sometimes, and he was telling me what was going on and what did I think about it. He says that he was with a buddy and they were at school. These are high school guys. He says, my buddy realized he had dropped some cash out of his pocket, and we looked over and a guy that he knew was picking up cash off the ground. So he tells him, hey, you know, that's my money, it's $80. The guy says, what money? You know, gives him that one, the what money, when they see him pick it up and stick it in his pocket. So there's some words that are exchanged, but they go their opposite ways. Now, weeks later, these guys are to the point that they're bringing knives to school, talking about using violence to settle it. And like I told my buddy last night, I said, you realize this isn't even about the money anymore. This isn't even about the $80. Now it's a matching of egos, of who's tougher and which ego is going to win. I said, over $80, man? These guys got the rest of their lives in front of them. And you can recoup $80 and you can see people's true colors. Over $80 too. So that ultimately I told them, you can make a lot more money, your buddy can make a lot more money, let it go. It's not worth it. Not worth doing something that you're really going to regret because you didn't have emotional intelligence. And those are 3 real-time applications. Now I invite you to look yourself in the mirror or sit in meditation or do both and think about some moments you needed emotional intelligence. Might have been this morning, could have been 20 minutes ago. It's the power of being in your own spirit, not reacting on emotion, cultivating your mind to think, to process, to see the bigger picture, and to not be ruled by your emotions. The sooner you start wrapping your head around emotional intelligence and little by little applying it, you will have clarity and become empowered on a level that you've never experienced. It's amazing. It's a life changer for sure. I want you to think about this. If you're reacting on emotion, you're really in the hands of somebody else. If there's somebody out there in your life or even on the street that catches you in a moment where you've got pent-up frustration and you just react, or it's someone that knows how to push your buttons and maybe they enjoy it. They like seeing you squirm and suffer. They like to inflict suffering on people. The sooner you start understanding and applying emotional intelligence, you will take away all that power that they have. You won't react on emotion. You'll react with thought. And you'll have the intelligence to do it and be better for it. So, to achieve the emotional intelligence, to understand it, and to apply it, you got to set yourself up for success and dig into the triggers, find some avenues to start bringing balance to your life. Like we discussed in the beginning of the episode, you have to have that pop-off valve. You have to balance out your energy. And applying emotional intelligence will get easier and easier. The more ready you are for it, you lower your stress levels, bring your energy to a good place, and you'll reap the benefits of it. I'd like to invite you to go to theconnection.studio. We've got some shirts on there that I think will help keep you centered. Good reminders, some good positive, healthy merchandise. Also, you'll find the journal for today's episode, and you'll find the journal for all of the other episodes, free of charge. Go to the tab, throw it in the cart. I'd like to thank you for watching. Emotional intelligence. Get into it. I can't tell you how valuable it is. It is amazing. I hope today's episode helped open your mind and open your heart. God bless. Thanks for joining us at the Connection Studio. You can support us by sharing with others and posting to social media. Keep doing the internal work, as it will truly make all the difference. God bless.